What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Chat Room, a podcast dedicated with having interviews with upcoming stars and influencers of our generation. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at thechatroom.tcr and on Twitter at thechatroom_TCR. Also, don't forget to become one of our valued Patreon members, which allows you to unlock exclusive content while also supporting this podcast. Enjoy the episode.
What's up, everybody? This is your host today, Martina, and I am joined by the wonderful Miss Courage Kusena, who is going to be talking to us about colorism. And this one is not really an interview per se. It's more like a talk between two sisters, because this is my little sister. So it's more like a discussion than an interview. So, Courage, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I hope you're well too.
I'm wonderful, right? So yeah, I guess let's just get straight into it. But obviously we have to start off with a definition, because maybe people don't actually know what we are talking about today. So if you could actually just give us a definition of what colorism is.
So people don't often come across the term colorism as much as they come across terms like racism. And there's one really great definition that I like to use for colorism that I found on this Instagram page called Darkest You. So colorism is the preferential treatment of same race people with lighter skin and the prejudiced treatment of same race people with dark skin. So the idea behind colorism is lighter skin is better than darker skin, and that's the power dynamic of it. So all of these things have power dynamics in them, and colorism is a power dynamic that basically enables lighter skin to be seen as better or preferred or wanted or anything good when compared to darker skin, which is seen as something that is undesirable, ugly, poor, and all these negative connotations.
All right, I get you. So what if, right, let's say I'm a white girl and I say I don't like light-skinned black guys, not in terms of like dating them, but just in general, I just don't like them. I prefer darker skinned guys. Would that fall into the lines of racism or colorism? Like, where does it fall?
So it probably fall into the lines of fetishization, because and just all of this all stems from racism. But there has been a trend in history in general where darker skinned men are fetishized by different races because they are seen as like the closest thing to like African or really black. So there's that idea of fetishization when it comes to men, and then when it comes to women, it's pretty much just colorism, but we do see different forms of fetishization, but all these stem from just racism. They're all basically aftermath of racism.
Okay, awesome. So now let's get into practical examples, right? As a black girl, I'm sure you have experienced it, obviously, what we are talking about today. So maybe just relay for us one occasion, or maybe if you want more than one occasion, where you actually fell victim to colorism.
So my experience of being going through colorism, I can give an example, like very practical example. On my Instagram, I have pictures where I look darker skinned, closer to my shade. So let's say I have an unfiltered picture, and I have like my natural hair and my skin unfiltered. Whereas if I post a picture with the filter, that makes me either look lighter, or let's say the sun is doing the job. The sun is doing the things, right? And I look lighter than I actually am. The pictures where I look lighter actually have more likes, significantly more likes, than the pictures where I actually look darker, right? And that is a practical example that I've seen in so many different people's like postings or like trends in like social media. And that is because every day on social media we're fed this typical IG baddie, this typical IG model. And the other thing is, you see dark-skinned women, but they have to look a certain way. So the idea of they have to have a certain body type, right? That's what we're being indoctrinated into, like, on a daily basis. And it reflects in my interactions. I've had people, I'll say something or like rant on my WhatsApp story, and people will ask me like, who triggered you? Why are you so angry? What is this? What is that? I've had people say things about my body, and the idea like of masculinization. Like I've had people ask me questions like, if you get any more muscular than this, who do you think is going to marry you? Or whatnot. And there's that idea that if I was lighter skinned and I still had the same amount of muscle on my body, people will probably not ask me those questions. People will be like, oh my gosh, this person is so fit. But as a dark-skinned person, and we've seen this with Serena Williams and Venus, there have often been questions, even Michelle Obama, and you don't even think of Michelle Obama as completely dark-skinned, but she's not light-skinned either. But you have people questioning their gender. People will be like, are you sure these are not men? If the First Lady, if Serena Williams, if Venus Williams is going through this, how am I going to feel in these situations? How am I meant to process this information, right? Another experience I can give you is recently with the death of Lufuno, the South African girl who basically she committed suicide after a bullying incident. When that happened and I read the story, I was really triggered. I cried, I was down, my day was pretty grey, and I didn't understand why until I sat down and realized that it's because I can relate. It's because I can put myself where she was. I've been bullied for my skin. I've been called ugly because of my skin shade. Over and over again for many, many years. People have been gaslighting me to this day about being dark skinned, right? And it made me absolutely devastated. But it made me understand that it's still relevant for me to talk about ideas of colorism, to talk about what women go through, or even, anyone who goes through colorism. I had to talk about it, right? And that's just an experience that's pretty recent and that actually hit me very hard. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult because you know why. And everyone else around you is denying why, intentionally and unintentionally. Yet you know why things are happening the way they are. It's because of your skin shade. People already have preconceived ideas of who you are because of your skin shade. And I cannot tell you, it is one of the most tormenting, one of the hardest, one of the consistently difficult things in my life personally, and I know in so many other people's lives. So I just think, and I guess that's why I think it's super important that we acknowledge what colorism is and what it does.
Okay, I totally hear you. I totally get you. And I'm sure even as generally, I think when we now bring up topics like this, it now starts to seem like, women are the only victims. And even if we are the victims most of the time, we have to acknowledge that the men get some of the bashing too, right? Have you ever seen colorism, men experiencing colorism?
Yeah, I mean, you want to take, for example, we went to Zimbabwean high schools, yeah? There was a lot of colorism that went on for dark-skinned guys. It was always, the jokes. There was always things like, if I switch off the light, I can't see you.
Yeah.
Or, this is a dark urn. Oh, this is dark, this is that. There was always jokes, and they were always the butt end of dark jokes. It was always dark-skinned people, but especially dark-skinned boys, because the idea is it's a joke, we all laugh about it. But I've met so many dark-skinned guys who've actually told me that it used to affect them. Guys used to be called midnight. And that really did grow up with some of these guys.
Yeah, and obviously, I like you said, went to Zimbabwean high school as well. So I can definitely relate to things like that happening. But we've also seen a trend recently of, those jokes about light-skinned guys where I've seen one recently where they're like, light-skinned guys wake up in the middle of the night, turn around, giggle and say, I'm so pretty. So clearly, no matter which end of the spectrum you're at, you're going to get some form of backlash for it.
So that's actually a result of masculinization, which is something that happens with dark-skinned Black people, where dark-skinned Black people are thought, especially dark-skinned men, are thought to be more masculine and have always thought to be more masculine. Ever since the slavery days, dark-skinned Black men are put on heavy jobs. They were put on heavy jobs because they were seen as much stronger. They could pretty much be animals about it. And all the way into like Reconstruction era, we had the lynchings and everything happened, where dark-skinned Black men were seen as people who couldn't control themselves, hence they needed to be controlled. There was always that idea, but there's the idea of masculinization within dark-skinned men, and how it then reflects is that dark-skinned women are masculinized. They're made to be more of men. They're made to be like stronger than they are. They're made to be less feminine than lighter skinned women. And then with lighter skinned men, they're meant to be less masculine, because the dark shade is equated to being masculine. So if you're a woman, if you're darker, you're more masculine. If you're a man and you're lighter, you're less masculine. That's why that thing has been like coming through the way it is. So there's so many like layers to what colorism is, and then what it also translates to. And that's like one of the things that I mean, the jokes are funny, hands down. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, not gonna lie about that one.
Yeah, but that's what that is. So these are all, like I said, it's all residue from racism. That's what it is.
Yeah, okay. So now the one thing that always comes up, especially when I talk to people about this topic, is yeah, but you know, it's just my preference. So is there a line between colorism and preference? And if it's there, what is that line? When can we now say, you are taking it too far now? Now you're not just having a preference.
I totally understand. I would love to say, I love saying this, and I love saying this to people's faces. You cannot have a preference with something that someone cannot change, especially when it comes to skin. Skin preference is built upon discriminatory behaviors. So even if you think it's a preference, you need to check yourself and think about why you have that preference. It's because all your life you've been fed that one certain shade or a certain shade and above is beautiful, or a certain shade and above is more masculine, or this and that. It's actually just a result of pretty much indoctrination. Because if you took all of that out, best believe that in an ideal situation, you wouldn't even be thinking about someone's skin shade. But yeah, we've all been sort of, even I've been victim to it, where we've been sort of indoctrinated into thinking that it's preference, and it's not. It's just indoctrination, and we need to unlearn it because it's just bad. That's what it is. And I would love to say to people, no, it's okay, you have preference, you don't. Some people cannot change their skin color, they cannot change their skin shade. And when they do, people get bashed for it, you know, bleaching and etc.
Yeah.
So sadly, if you guys think you have a preference, you don't. You need to check yourself.
Okay, then. Moving on swiftly from that one. Because, I mean, if you look at it really, even amongst ourselves as Black women, you find that sometimes we're like, oh no, I want tall, dark, handsome. You know, it's never tall, light, handsome. Like tall, dark, handsome is like the, you know. But people are like, oh no, I think it's just my preference, because like, even though I prefer to date darker skinned guys, like I never talk down on light skinned guys. And yeah, that's fair and fine, but it's not always about whether you talk down on them or not. I mean, whether you actually say it or not, there's something you're thinking in your mind that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum, right?
Exactly. That's what it is. It's so sad, because I've always fallen trapped to saying I love, you know, I want me a dark-skinned guy who's tall and whatnot.
Yes, and masculine. Yes.
Yes. Part of it comes from trauma. There's no question about that. But also part of it comes from the lighter skin villainizing the darker skinned Black people just in general. So a lot of it is trauma response, and a lot of it just needs to be dealt with. At phase of having to deal with accepting lighter skinned men as men. Like, he's a man. Doesn't matter whether he's light skinned or dark skinned. Doesn't make him any less of a man. The way that I don't want to be any less of a woman because I'm a dark skinned girl. So it's unlearning all these bad habits that we've been taught, and just figuring out our way forward in a very healthy manner.
Yeah, and of course, the very first thing we always do is talk about these things. First of all, we need to talk about it. We need to educate people and make people realize that there is a problem, right? And then once we know there is a problem, it's like, okay, now we know the problem is there, right? We know we've been given a math equation. How do we solve it? So like, other than talking about it, what do we do to fix this prejudice that people have?
I think listening is one of the first things. Listening to your darker skinned friends or your lighter skinned friends, males who've been through this sort of discrimination or fetishization or masculinization. I'm sorry for all the Zations, but yeah.
Oh yeah, my Shani.
Shani. But you need to listen. And I always tell this to people that don't start making excuses and saying, oh yeah, but you know me, I've dated so and so and so and so, which means I'm not like this, or I've never been like that, I've accepted you, I've never made fun of your skin. Yeah, you maybe have never made fun of my skin, but you've never been there to defend me when my skin is being made fun of. Exactly. That's a whole different ball game. So it's like one of those things where lived experiences, you cannot not listen to someone. You cannot refuse to believe someone just because maybe you weren't there. So listen to your friends, right? Learn. I think one of the most important things, so I'm an art history major and on a pre-engineering track, but I learned a lot of like history and focus on a lot of research on history. And I think it's important to learn. Ask yourself, why? Like, why is this? Before you even talk to anyone, before you even talk to anyone, go and search up colorism, go and search up racism, go and search up masculinization. Go on YouTube and say experiences of a dark-skinned girl and you'll see. Or, go search all of that up and just read. It's at your fingertips and you'd be shocked what you'd find out that. So I think that's one of the things that's important. People need to educate themselves on this, especially Black people and especially African people. Happy Africa Day, everyone. I think it's important. We need to start educating ourselves from our point of view and not from the European textbook point of view. And because we're pretty much just divided over people who don't even really like, this was the plan.
That was the plan. We are literally doing what they wanted us to do.
Exactly. And like the easiest way I always see it is colorism. I mean, look at famous women of Zimbabwe. A light skin. There's not even one single girl who I can say is representative of like dark skinned girls, and we have dark skinned women in Zimbabwe. Yet everyone who gets famous or liked or some sort of favorable reaction from the community always has to be liked.
Yeah, totally. I totally get you on that one. And I think it's a thing of generally when it comes to things like modeling and music videos, even when they do auditions for music videos, maybe some directors don't even consciously realize that they're doing it, but they actually just select based on appearance. And like, fine, okay, that's the aesthetic you're going for, but if every time you're picking people based on appearance for your music video, you're choosing light-skinned girls, you mean to tell me there's no beautiful dark-skinned girls? Is that what you're saying?
People always tell me, hey, Courage, when you're talking about models, they're those super dark-skinned Senegalese models, that's inclusion. And I'm like, no, that's not inclusion. That is fetishization. That is othering. There's always this need within the Western context, especially in modeling, of getting the darkest, leanest women from like Senegal and around the areas where you get those shades that are not truly representative of what dark-skinned women in Africa are. Yes, they're dark-skinned women. They're probably the darkest shade of dark-skinned women, but it's a whole thing of fetishization. It's like, but we have this dark-skinned girl. What are you saying? Like it's tokenization. That's what it is. It's really bad, and it is not healthy at all because you have to be different. You have to be something exotic. Yeah, that's it. It's being exotic. That's the idea. And it's pretty sad that we are still going through this in the 21st century, honestly.
I think it's actually worse now because we're actually coming, like a lot of these issues, I believe these issues were always there. But the reason why a lot of people now know of these issues is obviously the prevalence of social media and information at our fingertips. I mean, probably the way racism is happening right now, it's always been happening like that, but you wouldn't know because you didn't have Instagram to tell you with all the hashtags, right? But now it's there. It's seeming like it's been heightened, but I really don't believe it's heightened. I believe it's always been like that. You're just more aware now. And also considering the fact that we're growing up now. I mean, 10 years ago, even if colorism was happening around you, you were too young to even understand. I mean, you didn't even know X squared plus Y squared, what would be happening there. So like, you know, I think it's the thing of information now, and like so much information coming. How do we deal with it? How do I, like, for example, how can I be a supportive friend to you as a darker skinned girl? You know, simple things like that. And what would you tell someone if someone was to actually ask you, like, okay, I'm asking you as your sister, what would I do? What can I do to make the situation better for you, to make you more comfortable?
All right. I think one of the things I'll begin is saying tokenization is not it. Don't tokenize me. I don't like it when people, especially males, want to make me the token of the movement just because you support or you know one dark-skinned girl, Courage, very, personally. It doesn't help me that you're tokenizing me. You're not helping every other dark-skinned girl. And of course, you can't reach every other dark-skinned girl, but educate yourself on what it is that some of us feel by being treated as if we're less than because we're darker skinned.
Yeah.
There's also the idea of, sometimes your friends just feel down because of it. I mean, this sometimes really gets to my emotions. That why? It's not something I can change, because if I changed it, the world would
still make, like, they would still do something. That's the thing. That's the thing. No matter whether you're light skin or dark skin, they're gonna find something else. Whether you're slim, whether you're thicker, whatever, they will always find something where they're like, okay, exactly. Sure, you're light skin, you've got straight hair, but you're not slim. Like, okay.
And I think that I love that you mentioned the whole thick and thin and slim thing. Queen and slim. Anyways, but the point is, I feel like personally, I've been through fetishization because I'm of a darker skin and I'm bigger bodied, so I'm thicker, just in general. And over the past couple of years with my weight gain, I've seen sort of this gain in fetishization where there's this fetishization of thick, dark-skinned women. And I see it everywhere. Especially we have one of the nationalities I can give you is Haitian women. Haitian women are naturally very chocolate, very like dark skin, but they also are very, very well built. Like they're like thick, and anyone is well built. Honestly, don't let anyone tell you that just because you're thick, you're better than the other. Don't get it twisted. But the world right now is all about thick women, and especially thick, dark skin women are fetishized. So people will say the most degrading things to me. I'll post a workout video and people will say the most degrading. You'll be shocked as to what people say in my face.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be a compliment. And I'm like, this makes me feel so violated. And so I'll always say this to people. There's this, don't fetishize, don't do it. Don't call me whatever you want to call me just because I'm thick and dark skinned. Firstly, go educate yourself. We need to start there always. I'll say it. Go educate yourself. And find some manners. Learn how to talk to anyone. You wouldn't say that to your mom. And I remember there's a question that this one spoken word artist asked. He said, do you think of your mother as less beautiful even though she's dark-skinned? The same way you think of dark-skinned girls as less beautiful. Is that how you see your mom if she's dark-skinned? And that question, I think, would have hit a lot of people if they'd heard this spoken word poem, because there is this dehumanization of dark-skinned women. It's really bad. And especially in our Zimbabwean and South African context too, I think. Southern Africa, we're still bad. We're still really bad at it.
Yeah, because this is not where you get I think this is the part of the continent where you actually get the most variation in skin tone. Whereas up there, most people are actually darker skin. Here, you'll have the very light skin girl, you have the medium tone one, you'll have the caramel, you have everything. And so now there's more to compare to. And that abundance of, abundance of comparison that is available then just makes things worse, you know? It's
and like I mean, said,
if you go to Harvard and like, yeah, you were a smart kid at Westridge High School, cool. But you go to Harvard, now you're surrounded by smarter kids. There's more comparison there, you know, because they do only take kids that would be able to attain 4.0 GPA. So now you're around people, multiple U's basically, and there's more comparison that's going to happen.
You know what you just said is comparison. Don't compliment dark-skinned women and compare them at the same time to light-skinned women.
Yeah, like saying, you are pretty for a dark-skinned girl. No, I'm pretty, period. Like, that's the end of it.
Exactly. Or don't be saying, oh, what, you look just like those lighter-skinned women. In fact, you're better. No, I don't. Because that's exactly why I'm in this place in the first place. Is because I don't look like those lighter-skinned women. So don't be trying to... And I see where your heart is. I see where the intention is. But how we speak about it, it needs to completely change. We need to take away the comparison factor of it. We need to start to see it as actually individually capable of being beautiful. Yeah. And when your friend says, there's sometimes when I say, I don't want you to post that picture, because in that picture, I don't feel like I look beautiful because of my skin or whatever. And people are like, no, you look fine. You look fine. I said I don't want you to post it, so don't post it. It's not about whether you think I look fine or not. It's about how I'm feeling about that picture. And you posting it could potentially make me very, very sad. Mm-hmm, and I think people don't. I've been in situations where like, you look perfectly fine, Courage, you look perfectly fine.
Yeah, like, cool. I don't feel like that though.
Exactly, because you look great with this lighting and I don't. It's really simple things like that where people think it's being petty or silly, but it's not. Because when people are complimenting people under the picture, I am going to be able to see the trend of compliments that skips me because I'm the darkest person in the picture.
That is deep. That's really, really
and deep. That's it. People don't, I always tell people, you'll never be able to sit in my shoes if you're not my skin shade. The same way I'll never be able to sit in someone's shoes who's darker than me, because if we were put in comparison, I'm being chosen because I'm lighter than them. I have people around me who are lighter than me who still want to identify with the same problems that I go through. But I'm like, you really aren't going through the same things as me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I really let it go because you can only do so much. If there's someone who's darker than me, I'm going to have to be able and ready to understand that they've probably been through a much more difficult intersectionality with their skin shade, in terms of if we're standing next to each other, I'm going to be chosen as the better breed when it comes to colorism because I'm lighter than them. And I should be like honest enough and selfless enough to understand that they've just been through worse and they've just been through their own type of experience. Like I always say, no one is like more of a victim than the other, but everyone sits in a completely different intersection according to where your skin shade is. Yeah. So you see that the darkest people, especially with men and women in Zimbabwe, the darkest go through a lot. And then with people like me who are my shade, this is what we're told. You're dark, but at least you're not as dark as that person. Or you could be darker.
And it's back to the comparison thing.
Exactly. And it doesn't make anyone in that situation feel better. It doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't make the person who's darker than me feel better. But I also have to be ready to accept the fact that I'm the one who's used as the upper hand when that comparison comes. If that person is being said, is hearing someone saying to me, at least you're not as dark as so-and-so. So-and-so over there is going to go through a different type of trauma. I think you see where I'm going with it. I think it's just having to understand that, hey, experiences are different. You can empathize, but each person is on a different journey to this. And like I was saying, the picture thing, it's there. There's times when I don't want to be a part of pictures because I don't feel great about my skin. People have to accept that. There's times when I'm like, the lighting is just not great. People need to accept that. And I think there's another, there's always this villainization of people who use filters. And I'm like, the only way we're being accepted on social media is if we use filters. That's the only time that you're accepting me.
It's the
And then you
sun
add-
must be good, the iPhone must be connecting, the ring light must be doing the things.
Exactly. Everything must be doing the do's, huh? And now you want me to take off the one thing that the world has at least accepted me with. And people are like, no, you just have to learn, you just have to learn. It's a process. The fact that I'm even putting my face out there, that's one step forward for me, even if it's behind a filter.
Yeah.
Because when I take this filter off, all you're going to do is laugh at me and discriminate against me. So why should I take it off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely, that's deep. Well, unfortunately, this chat is so fire because of the people.
I know. Can feel the heat.
But unfortunately, we're running out of time. But thank you so much for taking your time to join us and basically educate us on this issue that is very, very pertinent right now. And I think obviously the tips that we can take away from you is people just need to educate themselves. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
And two, don't compare. And three, just because you have it worse doesn't mean I don't have it bad, you know? So yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. And that's all from us, everybody. Until next time, bye.